Hi, I'm Kenneth WAJDA. I'm a professional photographer here in Colorado. Welcome to another one of my photography talks. So today I'm going to talk about experiences. So somebody asked in one of the comments for me to describe what it was like to work at the newspaper and shooting photos for a daily newspaper on a daily basis. And it was interesting because a lot of times, you'd go in the morning, I was the early guy, and the photo assignment book wouldn't have a whole lot in it. And then by the end of the day, it would fill in as reporters were throwing in photo assignments and needing people to cover different things. And you could get really bad photo assignments. Sometimes you could get an assignment that they're going to put a new parking lot in where there's a field. And an editor would send you out and say, go get a picture of that field. And it's like, why? Why? How are you going to use a picture of a field and make that anything that really says much about a new parking lot? But you'd go out and shoot it, and sometimes you'd be disappointed the next day when they run the picture this big of your picture of your field, which doesn't really communicate anything. And you'd have experiences where things weren't always used well, or they were not used the way you would intend them to use. There's a lot of experiences where you're working with editors and they're word people. I remember talking to a sports editor once and saying, hey, I have this really long slide at second base. It's a real wide horizontal. Can you make that work? He's like, oh, I'll make it work. And he cut off the two sides and he used the center. And he made it work. And everybody doesn't always see like a photographer. And sometimes you have to work with, okay, what do I turn in? Do I give them 3 photos and then risk that they'll use 1 or 2 and not the main one that I would think as a photo person would be the best one for the story? Or do I just give them 3 and let them make the choices? And you'd have to kind of weigh what kind of assignment was it. And then there were screw-ups. There was a time I drove all the way out from Trenton, New Jersey to the Jersey Shore, and I had a photo assignment of a health story about a kid who had some rare disease. And I drove all the way out there, but I had recently photographed up in the photo studio at the newspaper a portrait for the business page, and I thought that I had brought all my equipment back down. But here I get to the Jersey Shore, which is like an hour and a quarter away, and one way. And then as I get there and I knock on the door, before I do, I look in the back seat and there's film and there's lenses, but there are no camera bodies in my car. And a lot of times people think that, amateurs and pros are so far worlds apart because pros don't make mistakes. Pros are constantly working with trouble and difficulties, and we're constantly fixing them. And I remember on that day, I thought, well, let's see, what can I do? I could go to a local camera store and rent a camera, but I bet they have a camera here. So I walked inside, I met the family, I met the kid, and I asked where, they were thinking, what could I think about? What would be good for light? Where would we shoot it? And I said, oh yeah, I think it would be good to shoot in here, and we could do this. And by the way, do you have a camera? And they're like, what? And I said, I could ride back to Trenton and go get my camera, but it's an hour and a quarter away, one way, and if you have a Pentax K1000 or something, that'll work fine. And they did. And they had a Pentax K1000 type camera with a 50 millimeter lens, and they had a zoom. And I said, I don't need the zoom, just give me that 50, and we'll shoot by window light, which is what I would typically shoot most of those stories with anyway, because I like good ambient light over flash. And the picture was beautiful. And the news editor loved it, the health department ran it, and there's no, to me, there's no shame in, oh, you made a mistake. I wasn't trying to save face. I really don't care if somebody sees I forgot something. Yeah, it's okay, I forgot something. Things happen. That's the way, problems happen, but the goal is get the picture and bring it back. So whatever it takes, find a way to solve the problem. But we all have those. And I think a lot of times people will say to me when they take classes, oh, it'd be nice to be a pro where you don't have to worry about the things that we worry about. And it's like, everybody is constantly dealing with little trips and falls, and that's part of it. A pro knows you can't say, well, I didn't get the photo, and I guess we'll just live without it. You have to bring it back. There's no, oh, I didn't get it. You must bring it back. There was a time when I was working an early morning assignment at an airport in Trenton, and they have this dream lift where they take handicapped kids. The local military comes and they carry the kids up this flight of stairs into the airplane, and they take them down to Disney World for a day. Literally, they go in the morning and they come back that night. and we were photographing, and we photograph it every year. This year they sent me out. I'm out there early in the morning and I'm shooting photos, and they have about four or five kids left to take up into the plane, and I look and the film didn't advance right. The film was stuck, and I don't think I shot any frames. So now I'm walking back to my car, and I'm up this big hill that overlooks the airport, which is where the car parking lot was, and I'm unloading my film, and I'm realizing it never wound through. And I have nothing. And there were 50 kids going into that plane, or 100 kids going into that plane, and there were 3 left. So I put a 180 millimeter lens on from that parking lot, overlooking this airplane, and I photographed the whole width of the airplane, and the Marines or the Air National Guard taking those kids up that staircase from a distance with a 180 millimeter lens instead of up close with a 35. They ran it 5 columns the next day on the paper, and I go, oh, we love that perspective. How'd you come up with that? And it's like, sometimes things don't always work out, and you have to find a way to make it work out. And I've had the same situation happen with, like, I thought a camera was loaded, and I'm shooting a group photo, and the group is all assembled, and I have them all together, I have them where I want, I try to create, when you do groups, we'll talk about it in another video, how to lay out groups in a certain way. I had it all laid out, it was all ready to go. I'm shooting and shooting and shooting, I'm getting the expressions I want, and then they're dispersing, and I'm pulling the film out, and there is no film. And I thought for sure I loaded this body. So then I go, hey, you know what, I want to do one more with a different film. And then I just put the first roll of film in, and you shoot it, and they're fine, nobody knows. Everybody needs to know, get your shot. Whatever it takes as a photographer working on an assignment, whether it's a business story, whether it's a client that you're working for, whether it's a newspaper, they need a shot. And at the point of, this photo is not going to come out if there's no film in the camera, let's put film in the camera now, and let's shoot it, and we'll get it. And they did. And that would happen occasionally because we make mistakes, but everybody does. It's not like pros are immune to mistakes. Everybody works, and you're constantly troubleshooting. That's the business of photography. The goal is to get to the point where your camera is not in your way, you're not fumbling with this thing, and you're able to connect with this thing. But there's still going to be issues, whether your battery dies in a digital camera, whether there's a film issue with film photography, it all comes back down to get the shot. That's the business of photography, especially in the newspaper world. All right, that's today's photography talk. If you're enjoying these, hit the subscribe button and we'll talk some more. Thanks so much for watching.